So, Venezuela, land of grace, oil, and Miss Universes. For a while I've been wanting to do this since I've not only lived most of the lovely and rosy and peaceful years of the Bolivarian Revolution myself, but I actually worked and fought and hustled to support those who opposed the catastrophe that was Chavez and later Maduro. Back in college, I actually put virtually on hold my career in chemistry because I couldn't stop engaging politically. Afterwards, I even quitted a scholarship to do a doctorate in Japan because all I wanted was to go back, and I want to go back home and keep fighting the good fight. From there, I went directly to the big leagues as part of the team charged with centralizing the contact data from volunteers all over the country, and then verifying that data. I was in fact responsible for the whole team's operations. So, and I was part of the campaign of Enrique Capriles Radonsky in 2012 and 2013. So yeah, I know my shit basically. And then 2015, I just left Venezuela because I like food. I like having access to groceries and medicine, and I especially like not having that constant and horrifying feeling that behind every corner something horrible awaits you, and you'll get only mugged if you're lucky. So yeah, again, Venezuela, land of grace, oil, these universes, and the patient zero of the modern authoritarian. And the patient zero of the modern authoritarian's playbook in the Western Hemisphere. What I want is them to share the story from my point of view and from the very start. All from my perspective, so don't expect any kind of balance, okay? I will wish those who deserve it according to me. That's it. Let's talk Chavez. So, Chavez was a very average, tending to failing officer in the military, and nobody knew who the hell he was in 1992 when he had his breakout multimedia project, February the 4th, the day it dawned with a coup. Turns out little Hugo and some of his friends, who will come back into the story later, don't worry, they have been really, really naughty. And they had been spending a lot of time conspiring to top the government by force, since they deemed the democratic framework, and especially the political parties participating in it, as a corrupted pile of hot garbage that was impossible to save or even work with. So they literally wanted to clean the state. They even wanted to institute a hygiene committee, if it sounds Orwellian enough. But in any case, the coup started somewhere around 4 a.m. and by 8 a.m. it was all over. They took some buildings. I guess the most emblematic one must be BTV, the state broadcasting network. But other than that, they achieved nothing militarily. But socially and politically, it was an earthquake. You see, in the early 90s, trust in the government and the institutions couldn't have been any lower. I mean, the country had been in the middle of an economic crisis that had slowly been showing the cracks in Venezuelan society. It all culminated in early 1989 with the huge riots collectively called El Caracazo. We'll return to that point later, but for now, just keep in mind that the people felt betrayed and mocked by the government and the political parties, the political elites. So when they saw Chavez, they thought, well, at least somebody's trying to do something. Chavez went to Yale, of course. I mean, we used to be a regular country, But the ripple effect of his actions were immediate. That much of a shock it was. A few months after his, another group of army men tried another coup, an even smaller coup, which failed, of course, and the government went into a panic mode. The Congress decided to indict the president at the time, Carlos Andrés Pérez, and the Supreme Court trial and sentenced him to home arrest in an attempt to offer like a sacrifice lamb to the people to help them turn the page and move on. But, well, I mean, the people did take the land gladly, but they did not forget a thing. I mean, it was horrible. 1989 was horrible in Venezuela. So the old bipartisan system was basically over, and the 1993 elections were as contested as they could have been. To give you an idea, the winner, Rafael Caldera, was one of the original founders of one of the two big old national parties, then got kicked out, and out of spite, maybe, he founded another party, ran for president, and won by calling his supporters his roaches. But in any case, the main two things relevant about this man's term were, in the first place, his willingness and complicity in the whole anti-party, anti-politics narrative that had been circulating in each and every subset of the Venezuelan society by the time, you know? I mean, he was really salty from all the getting kicked out thing, and I mean, he had previously been the third president of Democratic Venezuela. How dare they, you know? And indeed, you know, that helped him win the election. So of course he was going to keep that card on his hand, you know. But also, like, he unexpectedly and without any good reason, other than trying to mess with his political enemies, he fully pardoned and released Chavez, just like that. He later on tried to justify and even to apologize about it, but in any case, Chavez was now free to roam and do as he pleased, which he did. But he got busy those years, getting ready for the 1998 elections, you know, like really on the down low. He started a political movement called MBR 2000. I don't remember exactly the name. I think it's MBR 2000. There were a lot of things involved in this movement, this political movement, you know, but one of the things that was most remarkable and was unusual about this movement is that he started calling for the integration of the armed forces into civilian and especially governmental affairs, because, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, like, you know, we needed some logistical support to get things back to work, and who could do it better than the disciplined people from the military, you know? So this is a message that resonates with Venezuelans very, very well, because we have a long history of wanting and waiting for a strong man who will discipline and bring order to the government, clean it up, and, you know, like, get everyone back into course. And I mean, I guess military figures already have the look for the role, you know? So it helped us well that Chavez was, in my opinion. And I sincerely hope that one day experts and academics and, I don't know, historians, whatever, study Chavez, study how Chavez was, to me, one of the most charismatic people who has ever lived in the world. Like, seriously, the man had such power and control over those who listened to him, and he perfected it in such an amazing way that I do feel sometimes that there was very little to do to stop him, you know. Even if Venezuela was a country with the appropriate mechanisms to avoid people like that from getting into power. But out of the force of charisma alone, the system always apologetically tried and will find a way to give him what he wanted. So, but anyway, the movement became a political party, MBR, Movimiento Quinta República, Movement for the Fifth Republic, and soon enough, Chavez was getting more and more momentum. And I remember those elections clearly. I mean, I was 13 years old, and they were crazy. Crazy as hell. I mean, a former Miss Universe from 1981, named Irene Saez, started the race on the lead, and with a really, really good traction. Now you can giggle at the idea, but she had already proven herself as an efficient and uncorrupted public administrator when she took a couple of terms as mayor of one of Caracas municipalities. So being a Miss was actually a plus for her, not a minus. Her downfall was actually when she struck a deal with one of the last season OG parties. Again, she didn't lose points with the people because she was a former Miss Universe. She lost the crowd because she accepted the support of the Venezuelan equivalent of the GOP. So you can imagine how people were so fed up of the old bipartisan system that everything they touched seemed and was for a long time politically toxic. Chavez began thus branding himself as a revolutionary who wanted to really subvert the state as a whole, because I'm paraphrasing, of course, I don't remember exactly his words, but TLDR, he said the institutions in place by the Constitution of 1961, the basis of the democratic state of Venezuela, were all set up from the beginning and managed in a way that excluded the disadvantaged ones and kept the political and economic elites comfortably in power, where they could, keep stealing the money that should have been, invested on the people. And remember, Venezuela had a lot of oil money. So Chavez said that corruption and the system itself was designed in a way to keep people poor. And the political elites stealing the money was keeping them poor, which is not entirely false. So his solution was a revolution. He put on his red beret and he put on the table the idea of changing the Constitution as the main campaign promise, kind of like Trump's wall, to consecrate on it the principle of direct democracy, inclusion, social equality, joint cooperation between army, party, and civilians, all properly packaged and sold as very distorted and in many, many cases plain twisted or made up elements from Simón Bolívar's philosophical and political thought. Just as a quick side note, for those who don't know, Bolívar is like the Venezuelan Washington, except that he's even bigger for us. He's an even bigger deal for us. He's more than a national hero for Venezuela, for most Venezuelans. He's the foundation myth of the country. So you can imagine how appealing that message was for many, even for, like rational people, like academics and stuff. So his main opponent, who was Enrique Salas Romer, he had been governor of a relatively wealthy state and had done an okay job putting finances in order. People saw him as as an honest man, and he kept investing in the state, something that was seen as unusual from a local mandatory, since they always had been using this old excuse of Caracas is not sending enough resources, so there's nothing we can do, which was only, like a cover-up for corruption and just a really, really lousy job of administration. But in any case, Salas Romer wasn't a great speaker as Chavez, but he had one thing to his advantage, which was fear. As Chavez kept getting stronger on the polls, the campaign began to coalesce into a two-camp showdown. Salas Romer was the only one who was close enough to him to put up a fight. So everyone, went behind him. And the message of his campaign began to take every week darker and darker tones, with a bunch of, visions of the future. They indeed tried to expose Chavez as smoke and mirrors, discovering only a violent and grim outcome for the country if he was elected. But those were the days of the beginning of that saying, no vale, yo no creo. which roughly could be translated as, nah, there's no way that'll happen. I don't think so. I don't believe that will happen. No, he will be incapable of doing that. No vale, yo no creo. Nah. Turns out hindsight is a bitch. And thus, fear and all the yearly predictions of the future were not enough. Chavez won. Not by a landslide, but a comfortable margin that left no doubt of the winner. I remember that night. We had only one TV back in the house. So we all gathered in the living room to listen, to watch the results and listen to his speech when he won. All of my family voted for him. They were crazy supporters of Chavez. They were more than happy. They were like, crazy happy. Me too. I was kind of excited, because even though I was young, I already had a bunch of political ideas and concepts and stuff in my head, because my grandpa and we used to debate all the time. He was a staunch communist. So we used to clash a lot whenever his answers would be in conflict with my understanding of what democracy was. There were some really heated debates. Anyway, I remember feeling reassured by his speech. Because even though all of my family supported him, I secretly wanted him to lose, because I had that gut feeling that this man, he's covering something. This is not all of. So I told myself, I remember watching him, I told myself, well, I'm sure it'll be alright. How wrong was little me? That's how we began with Chavez. He was democratically elected. Everything was, the way it was supposed to be. So what happened? Well, we're gonna find that out soon enough, trust me. So I hope you join me on the next video, where we're gonna talk about the first years of Chavez and the new constitution, and why that was such a key part of his playbook. I think at the end of each episode, what we're gonna do is try to write down exactly his strategy, in order for you to recognize those signals whenever you see them in the discourse of a candidate, so you can choose correctly and you can avoid putting your country through the hell that Venezuela is living right now. If you liked it, you can just hit the like button, share, whatever, I don't know. And thank you for listening. I appreciate it.